Welcome to Watchacha's Tabletop World. My name is Swedish Watchacha, and today we're looking at my favorite Marvel Champions heroes. Okay, so another little rankings video here. I'm just going to go through it and rank my top 10 favorite Marvel Champions heroes. I'm very excited about this game. I love the LCG model, the solo model. You can play by yourself just as well as you can with a friend. So super exciting, and I love the ideas of these things being, you can play the same basic game, but it keeps kind of changing up. So little variations and stuff to keep things fresh and exciting. Well, this isn't a review of Marvel Champions, the game, but it is a look at the heroes. So let's jump in with my number 10. My number 10 is Cyclops. Now, as a hero, he's very enjoyable. He's got some cool things in his kit. I love the thematic nature that he's the leader of the X-Men and that he can make himself the permanent first player, which I think is really, really cool. I love the upgrades and stuff that he can put onto the table. It makes him really feel like he's the team leader. I think I've never played anything more than 2-player, and I played only a handful of games of that. But I think as a 4-player thing, that would be amazing. Just having him kind of like lead the way, it would really feel like you're all one big superhero team. A lot of times, in the movies and stuff, especially Avengers, they're always kind of like, I'm the Hulk, I'm just breaking things and messing things up, but I'm kind of doing my own thing. But the X-Men are very different. They're training in the danger room as a team all the time. They're doing these little team up moves and stuff. And I think Cyclops really helps bring that to life. And I really love that. That alone would not put him in my top 10. Really what it is, though, is his ability to sort of bring every single X-Men, doesn't matter what kind of type they are, what kind of sphere they're in, and I love that aspect because it really makes him feel like the leader of the X-Men. Now the X-Men allies have an amazing ability they all have amazing come into play abilities, and there's just such a large amount of them and a large variety of them. So it's very, very cool to play Cerebro, to play 2 X-Men, and bring them in and pop them out, and make the call, all this kind of stuff. Really, really exciting. So I love, I'm coming from a background of Lord of the Rings, the card game, and I really love the fact that these heroes that you sort of can build an archetype around. Now, you can still take the X-Men allies and under other heroes, but he just makes them sing in such an amazing way because he gets to take them all. You just take these ally heavy decks that are 20, 25 allies. It's so much fun to play, and then the variety of using those different heroes and different interactions, it really feels like a big team battle, which is what the X-Men love to do. Speaking of X-Men, my number 9 is Storm. Now, she is one of my favorite all-time top 10 comic book heroes of all time. I love her even when she's depowered in the early 200s of Uncanny. She's got her mohawk. She's so awesome. I really love her. This game, however, brings her to life really, really well. I love the idea that she has the Storm deck. It's such a cool, weather deck, excuse me. It's such a cool little thing because I love that it affects the whole board. Now, thematically, that's amazing. It's like if it's foggy, well, I can't see, you can't see, the bad guys and the good guys, so you're all under the same thing. So, giving everybody retaliate, giving everybody +1 attack, that's everybody on the board. And that's a very interesting little puzzle. And flipping down, trying to give yourself the best benefit for your deck, for the situation, for the round or whatever, before, the villain phase, and they're going to get that same benefit. So you try to it's quite an interesting little sequencing puzzle. I love more interesting heroes. I love more complicated heroes. They're more interesting to me. And this, she's really, really great because of that. I feel like she has lots of interesting things in her kit. Builds with boot camp and stuff like that, where everybody gets +1 attack, and using team strike and stuff is super, super fun. Being able to go to Stalwart and just shed any of those status effects that you've got. Really, really cool. So I love that, and it feels like you are a superhero. It really feels like she's controlling the weather, not just she might be the hero that feels most like she's affecting the entire battlefield. And I think that's what's really, really cool and so thematic. As a mechanism, it's fantastic for the whole board, and it's really cool thematically because it does really work as well. And that's my number 9, Storm. My number 8 is Doctor Strange. Now, this is going to be the most controversial pick because a lot of people don't like Doctor Strange because he's so powerful. Well, 2 reasons. Number 1, he's very powerful. And number 2, his signature kit is so good you often don't want to play anything else. For me, Doctor Strange is a big thematic win. I absolutely love him. I love the fact that he has that invocation deck. I love that, he gets his cloak and stuff, and that makes him very powerful. And he's a very powerful character. Couple things on that point. Number 1, I love a game. The best games to me are when they're tight, when they're close, like you're doing well, the enemy deck is doing well, and the game is just really a nail biter and you're really trying to figure things out. But, also you're playing superheroes. It's fun to feel powerful. And sometimes, especially in games that are very difficult, it's fun to play a powerful combo. You don't want to play that all the time, but it's super fun when you get to do that specific thing, when you get to like roll over the enemy a little better. It's nice every now and again to feel kind of powerful, and especially in this kind of a genre of a game where you are superheroes. I do think I love getting his cloak. I love the Eye of Agamotto. Like I love all that kind of stuff, equipping him up with Wong and stuff. I love the thematics of it, and his deck that the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. I love using that just as an lifetime comics fan, but also the Vapors of Valtor are super cool because it's one of the most magical items in any game I've ever played. Because it is completely like magic. You're like, look, I'm stunned. Well, guess what? Now I'm tough. You're completely changing that status. It feels so magical because there's nothing really in the game that does that. You can give yourself a tough status. You can give out stuns and confuses, but to switch the two, there's no other effect like that. I think that's really cool. I know that's like a kind of a niche card that doesn't get used very much when you're playing his kit. You usually try to cycle by that, but I do really like that exists because it's just part of the whole thematic nature of Doctor Strange, and I love the character so much. So yeah, this is a win for me. That's my number 8, Doctor Strange. My number 7 is Ironheart, and it's probably one of 2 characters on the list that I don't really know anything about. Never read any comics with her in it at all. I don't really know. I've seen her in Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2. But I don't really have any interest in the character, and that tends to be a lot of what pushes me towards the character, is whether I've been reading comics all my life about that character or not. But Ironheart's kit is so fascinating. I loved the original Iron Man. He's not on my list, but I love building him up. I love the idea of building and fixing and getting your whole suit all up and running, and she really has that feel because she is able to upgrade her suit to a second version and then a third version. And it's super fun that's what I'm always doing. I'm always trying to get that kit up and running, getting her upgraded. It's really, really fun. She gets more and more powerful each time she goes up. You kind of want to hang back in Alter Ego because in the first phase of the armor, because you need those cards and things. But there's so many interesting sequencing puzzles. There's such a fascinating thing about it, and I think mostly she's maybe the most unusual hero in the whole game. You're able to actually change out your hero card and stuff. Very, very fascinating. Like I say, I think Captain America's a great hero, super fun, great as one of the opening 5 heroes that came out. But at this point in the game, there's so many heroes. You really like to see those heroes that offer something different and unique and interesting, and she has that in spades. So yeah, that's my number 7, Ironheart. My number 6 is Phoenix, another character. It was one of my favorites as well, and they really nailed her thematically. I love the idea that you have this Phoenix Force that's sort of unattached from you. It's something that's living inside of her body. She's able to tap into that power, and she's very good thwarter. Early game, you're doing all these interesting things, like maybe throwing out side schemes. You're thwarting things down since you have such a good power with that. But at some point, you're going to want to go to Unleash because all your other player cards are going to be way more powerful. They're going to get all these extra benefits and things, and she's going to attack for more, and that's when you're racing towards the end game. And that's kind of fun. It's like a Euro game, board game or something, where you're kind of building an engine up, and then once you get to this point, you switch to building engine to creating points or whatever. And I love that idea. And her kit really feels like that. You're spending your whole time building up, but you want to know when to go to Unleashed. But the most fascinating part is the Dark Phoenix side, because that's such a powerful thematic element to this, is that she comes in and she is really strong. In solo, doesn't matter. She's always got 12 hit points. In solo, it's really tough to knock her out. And there's all kinds of cards that can bring her in, both from your kit and the encounter deck, or if you're playing Expert 2 or whatever you're playing, you're going to be seeing her. And sometimes I'll have to see her multiple times. But I love that it's so thematic, because it's like you just go Unleashed, man. She comes into play, and it's a really exciting kind of moment in a highly thematic one. And it's like, whoa, I was going to go rush down the villain now, but pump the brakes. Gotta pump the brakes. Gotta deal with Dark Phoenix first. So really, really cool. And her that side scheme that comes in, really, really thematic as well. I don't know how competitive she is because of those things, but I do think she's fascinating. And I didn't even mention her psionic cards, her psionic aspect. I love having that mini archetype to play with. I love Psylocke as well. She barely missed my list, but I really like the idea of playing with that little mini archetype of psionics, whether it just be with Cerebro or some of the other cards like Scimitar, or whatever, how you pronounce it. Really, really fun and interesting, and again, tough and solo, but hugely thematic. My number 6, Phoenix. My number 5 is X-23. Now, this is a hero that, to talk about powerful, she is super powerful, but also super fun. The thing that she brings to the table for me is it's really fun to play those like ready your hero kind of decks, and she is the best at it because she has so much self-readying, and it's fun. It's fun to always be doing stuff, and even if you're only like attacking for 3 and thwarting for 2, if you don't have any of your upgrades or anything out, it's still fun to be like able to do, like there's the 2/2/2 stat line, which is not so popular because they're not specialized in anything, but I really like this a little bit better, where it's like, well, she has the regular stats, but she can put those where she needs them, but in lots of little ways. Chip a little bit of the threat away, chip a little bit of enemies away. Super fun. But also, speaking of upgrades, she's one that's super fun to build out, or like just keep building all her upgrades and getting more and more powerful as it goes along. As well as that, I love the thematic nature of her and Honey Badger, where they're working together, and like they're the best kind of team up. They really feel like a duo. Super cool to like use one and then use the other and ready the other, and just use cards. They're great for like sidekick, maybe the best sidekick deck there is at this point in the game, etc. So there's just a lot of a cool and she can, protection and leadership are both really fantastic builds for her, but really she can use all the aspects, which I think is very, very cool. And she's very powerful as well, and sometimes it is fun to play with those powerful characters. That's my number 5, X-23. My number 4 is Spider. This is the Spider suit. This is the second character I alluded to. I've never read any comics with her in it before. Not really that familiar with the character. I did really love the Into the Spider-Verse movies, the first 2 here. And so this is another one like Ironheart. Very, very different. This character feels wonderfully thematic feel of being in a like kind of a mech suit. You're like the sequencing of like, should I use my interfaces to generate resources to play more cards, or should I use them because I need them to do whatever I've got to do attacker for on the board or ready? And that's super cool to me. I really love that aspect, but mostly I love the idea that it's like very thematic. Like as I said, like a mech suit, you're kind of like, I want to use my thwarting thing, but I got to reroute power from that to play something else, and it just feels like that, like the Star Trek Enterprise or something. It was like, reroute all power to the shields. It's that kind of thing. Like I think it's super thematic, and like and maybe the best card for that is the ejection. You put the ejection thing there. You pop out of your suit, and like everything gets like shut down for a second and exhausted. But you set your dial back up to 6. It's like you've escaped the broken suit. I think that's super fun, but sequencing that, all of that is so fascinating. There's so much going on. You've got tons and tons of cards on the table. You've got all these options and all these ways to fine tune and stuff, and I think that makes the puzzle of playing a game like this super fascinating and super fun and very original in the game. And that's my number 4, Spider. And my number 3 is one of my original favorite heroes, is Ant-Man. I love the thematic nature of him being like in the ant size, and he can use his ant buddies to help him, but if he goes to giant size, he doesn't have the ants to help him. And the giant size is super, super powerful, but if you're in that size, you have a much less hand size. I think you have like a 4 hand size. So you don't have as much ability to, like do other things. So there's a trade-off to everything, but switching back and forth a bunch, like using the resize cards, are super fun because, you can like ping a damage here to remove a tough or take a, threat away, so that when you thwart down, you can then just, when you switch to a different form, you can then, thwart the rest of it away. Very, very kind of fun. That's another kind of a complicated hero that has a lot of sequencing, but a lot of options. And I think that's what's fun about it, is that there's so many options. Very similar to Spider, X-23. These are characters that like you have a lot, very busy. There's a lot you could do, a lot of shades of gray, so it makes that puzzle much more fascinating and much more multifaceted. So you're not just like, I'm the Hulk, I'm going to punch. It's like, hey, I could do this and then switch down this and then do that. And so the turns are very, very busy, a lot going on, very, very fun, a lot of options, great puzzle, and that's Ant-Man. He does need his helmet, though. Like it is crazy the difference in the game whether you have his helmet or not. So that's maybe his one drawback. That's my number 3, Ant-Man. And my number 2, speaking of original, some of the original heroes, this is Black Widow. I played so many games of Black Widow. I super, super love her. She was really the first hero that came out that I really realized that you could do some different things in this game, because I realized you could just stay in alter ego for like four turns, 5 turns. Like you could stay for a very long time and then pop out. And that's so thematic. She's like a spy. She's like laying low, nobody, don't worry about me, and then she pops out, does some damage, and the villain phase, she triggers a bunch of her preparations. She's like gone around and prepped all this stuff. That's really, really amazing, I think. It's like, and that's so thematic that she's figured it all out, ahead of time, because that's what a spy would do. You put all these like sort of tactics and things into play just in case, prepping for all eventualities. And I think that's super fun, and it's fun to like trigger those, and it's fun kind of to just play differently, to play mostly in alter ego. Now Jubilee comes out tomorrow. She's going to come with this disguise card, so I kind of want to bring Black Widow back out because that disguise card would be super, super useful as well. So very fun hero. I love to play. I wish there were some more tactics cards coming out so you could change other spheres. I tend to like her just in Justice for those reasons, but that's my number 2, Black Widow. And my number 1 is Cable. Now, this is a character that I knew was going to come out. Not that Cable, of course, was going to come out, but I knew that this style of character was going to come out. Being a fan of Lord of the Rings and knowing how much Cable loved Caleb Grace, the designer of that game, and he designed both games in part. He was one of the designers, but he loved the whole side scheme thing. I love that in Lord of the Rings. And there's a hero that kind of like gets more powerful off that. You can bring something. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But I knew that this hero was going to come out. I knew there was going to be one that really interacted with side schemes, that they would have player side schemes. And I kind of thought it might be Daredevil because he's so popular. And I thought this maybe, but it actually works really well with Cable. Especially I love his side scheme that is his obligation, or not obligation, but it's in his when the Shadows of Nemesis set. I love that. Like he goes back to the future. He can't affect anything else because he's been yanked into the future. He's not in the present anymore. He can't help anybody. That's really, really super cool. But aside from thematically, I love the whole sequencing of like which side schemes to put out, when to put them out, because you can only have one out at a time. You think about it, you're like, what's the most? It's an efficiency game, and I love efficiency, and I love just playing him and thinking like, okay, if I do this first, then I can knock this out, then it'll ready me, and I'll do this, and then there's a whole kits of cards that revolve just around, like Turn the Tide, Skilled Investigator. There's all these cards that exist around side schemes, and that's really, really cool to always have those in play, especially like playing Justice. It's kind of frustrating sometimes when you are all geared to go with Justice and side schemes and things aren't coming out, the villain isn't scheming as much, and you don't really get to play with a lot of those cards. And he allows you to do all that stuff. Speaking of allowing you to do things, he is probably the ultimate support hero, because there's a lot of heroes, if you have some jank or something weird you want to do, or that hero's really great, but they gotta have that attachment or something. Well, you can bring Cable in as a teammate, and he will help the whole table for all that kind of stuff. So I think that's really, really fascinating to give everybody a jump start, because those opening turns, of course, are the most difficult of the game in general. So I think that's really, really fascinating. But he's super fun. He's very powerful, but he is also very balanced. I feel like he's got some, he's got to build up like anybody. So that's Cable, my number 1 Marvel Champions hero. Okay, so that's my 10 favorite Marvel Champions hero. To be fair, I have played everything but 3 heroes. I'm actually going to do a little video, if you like, about my data, about the games I played and stuff. I just did it for fun, so maybe you'd like to see that. But please put your thoughts below, whether you love a hero, hate a hero, would like to try one because you heard me talk so enthusiastic about it, or something that you can put your own favorite heroes in the descriptions. But for now, I gotta roll.